Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, calling this Jeremy Price. What is it, 1:45? Is it 2 in the morning yet?
2 in the morning.
Oh, it's 2 in the morning. Nice. So I don't know when you guys are going to see this, but this is when we're taping it. It's 2 in the morning. As though we use tape. Anyway, it's been a long night. It's been a weird night. There's a lot of just general strangeness today. Whoever decided it was a good idea to have 9 o'clock tip for senior night. I hate you. I just want you to know that, whoever
ESPN?
you are. Yeah. I don't really hate you, ESPN, but seriously, Arkansas and Missouri were playing at 7 o'clock. That's a Central Time Zone game. There's no reason they couldn't have played at 9. This would have got just fine ratings at 7 o'clock. You guys would have been fine, and I wouldn't still be here. So, just saying, just so you're aware. But anyway, as Tom Crean called it, today was the epitome, I guess, of bittersweet, and that's really a heck of a way to put it. On senior night, on a night where they were really trying to pay tribute to 3 guys who had done an epic amount for Indiana as a basketball program, and that frankly gave 3 really amazing speeches, especially Jordy Hall's absolutely brought the house down. He was tearing up, and I think a lot of other people in the stands had to be as well. Just a really heartfelt speech from a kid that absolutely poured his entire heart into Indiana. And they had to do that after a loss, basically, on a night where they were supposed to be crowned Big Ten champs, and it was a night where they were supposed to go out and win it outright, be the first team since 1993 to do it. They pretty much had their worst performance of the year. I would go so far as to say that. I think this, all in all around, in terms of just really never getting it going, really never finding a rhythm, and never really having that moment where they looked like the number 1 team in the country, where they looked like the Big Ten champions and everything else. I think there was more of that tonight than any other night so far this year.
Yeah, I think you could make a valid case for that, because really outside of about that first 5 minutes of the second half was about the only time in the game where they really got something going, got a consistent rhythm, really had the game flowing in a way that was favorable to them. I thought the rest of the night, Ohio State really had the style of play, just kind of dictated the game, really, and just made Indiana largely uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, they were in control and they played tougher. I mean, I think you saw a lot different in terms of how they defended. I thought Ohio State did. I mean, obviously it wasn't different in terms of schematics, but they were a lot more aggressive. They were a lot more active. They seemed to be playing passing lanes really hard, fronting really hard in the post. They obviously knew that Indiana was going to make it a priority again to go inside like they did in Columbus, where they scored just a ton of points really from the got a ton of points from the front court. They were just making sure that wasn't going to happen again, and they made almost every pass tough. I mean, any pass that Indiana made that was going to put them in a scoring position, Ohio State made very difficult for that to happen. And they Indiana turns the ball over 12 times. That's not a bad number, but Ohio State turned that into a lot. They had 16 points off turnovers. Again, that's not a ton, but in a game that was played at the pace that it was at, where it was tough for either team to really make a bunch of buckets or a bunch of runs, those were huge. I mean, those were critical. And Ohio State only gave it away 8 times. Indiana did not have the same amount, the same ability to get pace going or anything like that. I mean, it was difficult. Cody Zeller had a pretty decent night with 17 points. Watford had 12, but really everybody else had a really difficult night, and those guys didn't get their buckets easy.
Yeah, and I think Zeller, if I'm not mistaken, had 13 of those in the first half. So second half, he really didn't get a whole lot going, if I'm not mistaken.
Am I right? He had 8. He had 8 in the first half.
8 in the first half.
So,
but
still, the point is,
he had a couple buckets there in that run at the beginning of the second half, and then from there on, it just seemed like he wasn't getting the ball in the spot where he was comfortable. And he had a matchup that clearly we saw in Columbus and in the early part of tonight's game, again, whether it was Amir Williams or Ravenel, that I think he was able to take advantage of, although Williams, I think, was a little better tonight than
they were both better tonight, but I thought Ravenel was the guy that was tough. I thought Ravenel really gave him some problems. And Ravenel's a big guy. He's more experienced. I mean, he's he in some ways is that guy that sort of bulky guy that Zeller has trouble with sometimes. They stuck with him through some foul trouble, which I thought was big. I thought in the first game, they got Ravenel a bunch of foul trouble, and therefore that allowed Zeller to take advantage of him. Tonight they sort of let him play through it. He ended up with 4 at the end of it. But he made life difficult. I didn't think Williams was very good, on Zeller. I mean, he had his moments. He certainly had a big block on Yogi Ferrell when Indiana really needed a bucket. Ferrell was just trying to make something happen. He got to the rim, and Williams just swatted him. But I thought Zeller was still able to mostly take advantage of Williams when he had him, but Ravenel made it a lot tougher this time, I thought. And I thought Ravenel was okay on him the first time. Zeller just absolutely manhandled Williams in the first game. But yeah, I mean, both of those guys made life a lot more difficult, I thought, than they did the first time. Maybe the box score tells you something different, but yeah, Williams was 0 for 0, 4 points, or 4 rebounds, 14. He only played 14 minutes, but he did have 2 big blocks. But yeah, another big story tonight. I thought Victor Oladipo foul trouble basically in the first half. Only played 7 minutes, and it seemed like that just threw him off his rhythm. And in the first 5 minutes of the half, he looked like he just wanted to take it over really bad, and he did for a little bit. Had a 3-pointer and had a couple of big defensive plays, but it seemed like when Ohio State didn't cave, which was also big, Ohio State kept making shots, not quite at the pace that Indiana was, but close enough to keep it from getting out of hand, to keep Indiana from kind of getting the roof to cave in on him. It seemed like Oladipo had a tough stretch after that, and it was tough for him to he was really trying to do it all, and it got him in some trouble, I thought.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is we tend to kind of separate this whole senior night thing and the game itself, but I think there was a lot of carryover with that. I felt like maybe just the whole emotion of the night, all the everything that went into it, however you want to describe it, whether pressure, hype, excitement, whatever, just kind of got the better of Indiana tonight. And I thought Ohio State, on the other hand, came in as a team that felt like they had something to prove, that they weren't real happy with their performance in that first game.
Absolutely.
They felt like they were kind of the underdog and kind of had a chip on their shoulder,
Sure.
which is the way Indiana has really played much of the last year and a half. Even this year, when they've had that number 1 ranking, they've still kind of played a little bit of that having something to prove idea a little bit. And that was definitely in Ohio State's favor tonight, and that was a large part of the reason they were able to hang in and kind of weather that storm initially in the second half.
Yeah, it's a difficult concept to articulate, I think, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how to put it. It was Ohio State had something to prove. I mean, they had a point that they were trying to make, but they were trying to make it collectively. Indiana's guys were trying to do something for somebody. I mean, they realized they only had one shot to do it. It was senior night, and they were, and it's a different kind of pressure, I think, and you could see that on them, that it weighed on them, that they realized, I think, that they were expected to do this, that this is what you're supposed to do for seniors, and especially that these seniors had done so much, had been through so much, had suffered so much losing to get to where they are, that the degree to which they felt like they owed it to them, that weighs, I think, sometimes. And and obviously those emotions make a lot of sense because those guys had done a lot. It's not like they asked for it necessarily, and it's not like Jordy Halls was demanding Victor Oladipo like, you owe me this. But I think they recognized that they did kind of owe them a fitting senior night, a joyful senior night in which they would be declared Big Ten champs outright. And there's a weight there to carry, and I think that's maybe this might have been the first time we saw them really playing with a weight.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Exactly. I think they maybe felt a little of those expectations, pressure, a little bit.
Because it's even different than being preseason number 1. This is different. There's something emotional. There's something, there's gravity and meaning to it.
And senior night's different because senior night's is not just other people's expectations. It's not outside expectations. It's
your own.
Inner expectations, and there's just sort of a heaviness about it sometimes, and sometimes senior night can really get things, light people's fire, kind of get things going in a good way, and then other times it kind of just drags you down instead of lifting you up, and I think it kind of was that.
And if it gets going, you're like, are we really going to do this on senior night? Is this really going to happen to us on senior night? We can't do this, and there is, it's not just another game. It doesn't, and I don't think it's like you said. I mean, obviously last year, they whooped Purdue on senior night, so I mean, it's not like it's a universal thing that it always happens the same way every time. But this one, it seemed like it did. I think you're right. The tough part, obviously, for this one is now number 1, Indiana's played 3 games where they haven't looked very good. There was a some degree of, you could say, mature approach against Iowa, but they obviously didn't shoot it well at all. Lost to Minnesota, now lose this game. And, now Michigan becomes huge. I mean, now all of a sudden they've played shaky at best for 3 games straight. They've got to, probably got to beat Michigan to make sure that they've got the 1 seed. I don't know exactly what all can happen or what all the scenarios and the tiebreakers are. And the 1 seed isn't the 1 seed overall in the tournament, or not the overall 1 seed, but a 1 seed, I think, in the tournament is suddenly at least in jeopardy.
Yeah. It shifts things kind of back to the point where suddenly Indiana has something to prove again. They've got something to play for.
That's the bright side way to look at it.
And the game on Sunday is important, but it also makes the Big Ten tournament more important. I think had they won tonight and Sunday, then they were pretty much, locked in for
Right.
the NCAA tournament no matter what
And
happened.
being the 1 seed, being the 1 seed in Indy, I think that all that was a lock at that point.
Yeah, now it's kind of all up for grabs. Whether they win Sunday or not, I'm not sure that's as important as what happens in the Big Ten tournament. Whether they show some signs of carrying some momentum forward into the tournament, because I think that's a big thing the committee looks at.
Yeah, I don't think they have to win it, obviously.
But at least I think you need to get to the final.
Yeah.
You never know how the pairings. I mean, you never know who
Probably.
you play in the semifinals.
You're right.
But
You're right. But Michigan becomes big again.
is
For a while there, maybe we thought it would be not obsolete, but slightly less important. It's big again. It's a really big game. Real quick, we should talk about the net cutting and the trophy and the hats.
yes.
All that. That was weird. I don't know. I agree with them in the case. Tom Crean was asked about it, and the players were asked about it, and he said, we earned that right, and they did. So I don't know exactly what could have been done. I mean, in some ways, it almost would have been better if they did it on their own, but it just felt weird. It felt awkward. It felt strange.
It was. I get it. I get why they did it.
No, I get it too. I think you're
and
exactly right. I get it.
They did deserve
They
to
deserve the
celebrate
right.
however they want to celebrate.
Yeah.
And it's hard to begrudge them that.
Yeah.
However, under the circumstances, it just didn't fit.
No. It's weird to put how that makes sense. Because obviously, again, we've seen what these guys have gone through. It's been really amazing what they've been able to pull off, considering how bad a shape they were in and where they're at now. But just looked odd.
And they didn't seem terribly.
They didn't seem
enthused
terribly
about it
happy
at all.
about it either. They didn't seem to be enjoying it.
Not that anybody was,
Yeah.
forcing them to do this against their will, but it wasn't exactly jubilation.
Yeah. No, they weren't enthusiastic about it, and they have a hard time doing that. So, I don't know. That's our take. You could go a bunch of ways with it, but we don't have time to take that much further because we're 11 minutes and 45 seconds in.